Now, even more alarming than that news is the latest school attendance figures from the Northern Territory. Indigenous children in the NT are attending school so infrequently that nearly 1,700 of them aren't even in official attendance figures. Let's hear from Sky News Northern Territory correspondent Matt Cunningham.
In 2024, according to this latest data, it's 55.7%. Now, if you compare that to non-Indigenous students here in the NT, there has been a drop-off in that area as well, but it's only dropped from an 89.3% attendance in 2016 to 85% in 2024. And as we were talking about last week, the real numbers are actually significantly worse. There are more than 1,700 students in the Northern Territory, more than 1,600 of those are Indigenous, who are taken off the official roll because they attend school so infrequently.
Patrick, there's so much focus on closing the gap, so much spending on closing the gap, but those figures tell a story, and it's a worrying story. We're not going to be closing the gap if attendance numbers are falling like that.
And it's a Northern Territory story too. If you actually look at the Indigenous attendance rates for every other state and territory, they're 30% higher than the Northern Territory. Look, these are complicated issues. All the closing the gap issues are very complicated. I've been to these remote communities. I mean, you can pick out one symptom, as this is, and say, hang on, this is bad. There's a much wider sort of set of problems that go to it. But this is out of kilter with the rest of Australia. It's a Northern Territory problem.
It is, and they've got a relatively new government. Let's see what they can do there. Meanwhile, in New South Wales, a mass exodus from state schools is underway as more parents opt to send their children to Catholic and private schools. Patrick, we're in a cost of living crisis, so this is significant news. People are going without, making huge sacrifices because obviously they see a problem with the state school system.
Yeah, look, people are choosing to pay, according to these figures, you know, $5,000 a year that they wouldn't otherwise, or $40,000 a year to make sure their kids have a decent education. It shows a lack of faith in the education system, and perhaps it actually shows a pushback against some of the values that we see in public education, some of the wokeness that sort of crept in and really taken over in so many ways. A lot of people are saying no.
That's it. And at state schools, you really don't have the option to say no. At least at a private school, even if this wokeness is being shoved down your throat, you can take a stand because you're paying for it. Now, tourism and cruise ship bosses have warned the Jacinta Allen government in Victoria that its 15% increase to port fees and the lack of upgrades to the hopelessly old and tired station pier is going to cause a max exodus from Melbourne by cruise ship operators. This is huge money. Herald Sun reports that the state is expected to lose millions in revenue as it braces for a 70% plunge in the number of ships that will use the city as a home port next season. This is just, again, more Victorian government, short-sighted taxes to try to raise some money because the state's in debt, it's broke. But in the long run, it's going to cost us money because people come on those cruise ships, they spend a day in the city and they spend up.
Well, Melbourne doesn't have all the natural advantages of some of the other places that cruise ships stop. It has to have great infrastructure, and they haven't spent the money on Station Pier. They've jacked up the tax, as they've done on so many things in so many tricksy sort of ways in the last couple of years. It's just another symbol, and it's an important symbol. As you say, it's a lot of money. The Victorians are missing out on this money because of mismanagement of something that's pretty basic to begin with.
We've got Port Phillip Bay. We do have the natural assets, but we're not utilising it. Patrick Carlyon, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Rita.